Mel, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here, SOFI. I'm going to go a little bit into a deeper dive into the technical analysis of SOFI. I'm going to analyze this thing to death here. If you're wondering what my thoughts are, I think it's building up a very powerful move. It's going to go up a lot higher, probably through 2025, maybe even in 2026. If you ask me why that is, I'm going to show you what I'm seeing here. First of all, I'm going to just start out by showing you a Gantt chart, which you may or may not believe, but I'm going to show you to you anyway. I'm going to draw a Gantt square, and I'm going to use a magnet from the bottom here. And the period, the duration, I'm going to use as a multiple of 45, which is how you're supposed to do it. So it's going to be 360 here with the duration, and I'm going to change the ratio into 1, which is basically how you're supposed to start with. And if you do it this way, and if you zoom in terms of what you're seeing here, right now it's just stuck at a very important area here where there is a angle that is serving as support, and there's an arc here serving as resistance. Now, that could be concerning, right? It could either break down or break up, but I think it's going to break up. I'm going to show you in terms of throughout the entire video in terms of why I think that is. One thing that's very important putting into context here is to see how the stock has been trending really since 2021. You have a very, very long-standing bear market trend line that has just been broken over the last few weeks. And we kind of arguably came back and back tested here a little bit, and it's just kind of bounced, right? This whole back test right here was happening when VIX was like 65, when there's a lot of scares on the yen carry trade, and end up touching that, went through that, and it just bounced right back as an inside candle. And right now we found the angle here as support again. So you have to keep that in context. And another context to keep a look at that into what SOFI is doing is to look at the Ichimoku cloud. Now you are underneath the $8 resistance here at the Ichimoku cloud here on the weekly, but the cloud is also getting thinner and thinner over here. So this is the moment where you have a vulnerability where I can totally see price kind of pushing up in a very, very powerful move and potentially backtest the cloud here before further bullish continuation. That's kind of what I'm seeing here with SOFI. And overall, if I just tick off all these indicators, and I should, and if I just tick that off, overall, if you look at the Bollinger Band, why didn't SOFI push up? Well, because the weekly Bollinger Band was still kind of tight. It hasn't expanded yet. But the week over the last couple of months have really expanded the Bollinger Band. Just look at how volatile it was. Touch the upper, touch the lower, touch the upper again. These are very, very impulsive price action. It looks like price wants to go up higher. The Bollinger Band is expanding, and the 20-week moving average is pointing up. So all of these are very, very positive for the price action of SOFI. It's very, very important to put all this into context. Now, I'm going to take off the Bollinger Band here. Now you're talking about all these great stuff that might be happening, right? On the Ichimoku, it could potentially break out, right? All that stuff is nice and good. The question would be, what are we kind of talking about here? Well, even if it breaks above, you might hit a very, very strong 2-week Ichimoku cloud resistance up here. So I still think that 850 is going to be potentially some resistance here, but I do think that we would probably end up breaking into the cloud and maybe even get up to like the $10 range at some point, back test somewhere, maybe $9, maybe like the high 8s or something like that, and it might end up being range bound here. But once you break through the cloud, I think things would probably get pretty bullish, maybe towards 2025. That's kind of what I'm seeing here with SOFI. Now going back to the weekly here, all you're really seeing here is forming very much of a reaccumulation pattern. I'm going to show you as to why I think it's reaccumulation. What I mean by that is this is accumulation, right? Broke through the accumulation range, and right now it's reaccumulation. This looks like an Adam and Eve bottom. The Adam and Eve bottom is looking very, very nice. Now, if it breaks above the $10 mark, assuming a $10 mark is going to be the neckline, if you will, and the bottom down here is closer around 6, right? So if it breaks above, the target's going to be around 14. If it breaks above, the target's going to be around 14, then it could hit like this arc over here, maybe by sometime 2025, maybe mid-year or so. If it ends up breaking through the Adam and Eve, that's going to be the target, around $14. $14 is also a very important zone is probably going to serve as pretty important resistance because it was serving as support for the entire year around 2020 2020 and 2021. So I see that 14 is also potentially a very, very important resistance zone if it breaks above 10, right? That is kind of what I'm seeing on the nutshell here. Now, even zooming out here a little bit, if you look at the monthly, here, and if I take off the gain that I'm seeing here, what you could be seeing is a lot of these kind of a little bit more positive things happening. You know how the Tenkan, the blue line, was serving a little bit as resistance over here, resistance. Now that we've actually kind of turned into support here and actually bounced from the Tenkan here a little bit, granted it's negative sloping, so it's not that promising, but it's important that looks like we might be reclaiming the Tenkan here. We had a bullish cross here, but it didn't mean much because price was underneath the Tenkan Kijun. And right now we had a bearish cross, but right now price actually got back above the Tenkan. This actually, to me, is actually more of a positive event than the bullish cross over here. Because the bullish cross with these, moving period averages are just like downward sloping. But right now the Kijun is stable. Right now we're reclaiming the Tenkan, and we'll see whether or not we're able to reclaim that. I think we will. I'm going to show you again as a little bit as to why that is. I would like to see us reclaiming the 20-month moving average again. This month has only had 2 trading days so far, and decided to kind of got back down underneath of it. But I do think that this month's going to end up closing back above of it, getting ready for a pretty big move. Why am I so confident in all of this? Well, there are a couple of reasons as to why I feel confident. One is actually, if you just look at the data from fintel.io, you can see that there's actually a huge increase in institutional ownership over the last year. And this is in the context of price just kind of doing nothing for the last year. Like, if anything, it was kind of dipping down, right? But it did absolutely nothing for last year when you have a huge exponential increase in all of this, institutional ownership, right? So if I just zoom out here back into the weekly, I guess I should say zoom in back into the weekly here. If I put up the L3, the L3 Banker Fund Flow Trend Oscillator, this is basically like an oscillator that is a way to kind of calculate how much wellish momentum there is, big money, things like that, right? Looking at the orders, looking at the volume, this is kind of how this is being calculated. And you had a buy signal over here back in July of 2024. And this buy signal is on the back of price really just not moving much. Like, it moved from like around $7 over to like $7. It really did nothing. But look at the increase in wellish momentum over the last couple months. It's just been absolutely incredible, right? Even if you look at the MCDX Plus here, which is another wellish indicator, you can also see that retail, the green is the retail. Retail has really significantly have gone much less in terms of momentum. The wells haven't really increased all that much. It's important to notice that the retail is really decreasing here. So all of these are really telling us that there's a lot of bullish, wellish momentum that are building up. And you really need to see those kinds of things. That's exactly what I saw like before Tesla broke out, by the way. So I'm seeing a lot of these positive energy here. I'm seeing that an institution continue to be accumulating. And I'm seeing the price really have just done absolutely nothing, right? So where do you think things is going to happen? What do you think the next step is going to be, right? If you look at the on-balance volume, this is also a way to kind of look at whether or not the volume is congruent with price. And if there's a little bit of discrepancy, then it might actually show you some hidden divergences that might be bullish, right? Have I seen any hidden bullish divergence? Yes, I have. All this stuff down here, when price just kind of went down, you actually have very much of an increase in on-balance volume, right? This is the bullish divergence that's been playing out. So there's a lot of hidden institutions and whales buying pressure. They have a lot of different financial instruments that they can do to really accumulate SOFI without letting you know. You would imagine that these big buyers are buying prices shoot up, right? Not necessarily. They can suppress price. There are a lot of financial instruments that they can do to really suppress price, to kind of make sure that they have more shares and make sure you have less shares because you're so tired of SOFI. And next thing you know, all it takes is just a move like it did over here from like $4 all the way up to like 12, for people to really capture their imagination, thinking that they need to chase because something big is happening. But overall, this whole move right here has exhausted the entire uptrend, and things just kind of gone sideways for about a year and a half. That's exactly what's happening, but right now is flipping the angle from resistance here back into support. And right now there's a lot of bearish momentum. Right now the cloud resistance is getting weaker. And right now we just broke through the bear market trend line, and we have been doing that for a few weeks now, right? We already back tested it. This thing looks like it wants to go. And also looking at the Bollinger Band, it looks like the weekly Bollinger Band is expanding, allowing price to go up higher, and the 20-week moving average is curling up. All of these things are very promising. Now, if you're asking me what I think is going to happen for a long term, I think it's going to be a little bit tricky. Now, I can give you some targets, and I can give you some rationale as to why I think that's the case. But the whole idea is it depends on whether or not you believe in any of the stuff that I'm talking about. It depends on whether or not you believe in like Elliott waves and how price generally moves. Elliott waves actually go hand in hand with Bollinger Band. I'll show you what I mean by that here just real quick. So a lot of times you can basically look at the monthly Bollinger Band, and you are talking about people talking about wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5 waves up, 3 waves down, whatever, or actually 3 waves up, 2 waves down. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I totally see this being, wave 1, being a very, very impulsive wave 1. Let me go ahead and get rid of the GAN here because I don't really need that. I can draw that back at any time. If I do that from here to here, that would be wave 1. We have a very, very much of a prolonged wave 2. And then you have wave 3 that I think is probably going to end up hitting like somewhere maybe like in the 40s, and I can kind of show you why that is. A little bit of back test down here on some things, and wave 5 can go up to around 60 or so. I'll tell you a little bit in terms of what my rationale is, right? The whole idea about Elliott wave, I'm going to show you this with Bitcoin here as well. Wave 1 generally is a reversal of a downtrend. It's basically trying to flip the median, which is the 20-month moving average here in this case. It's basically trying to use a very impulsive price action to flip something that is negative sloping to more positive sloping. And then wave 2 is the corrective wave where things just kind of cool down. And usually with wave 2, you have a little bit of a monthly Bollinger Band contraction, telling you that things have consolidated sideways here. And we have finally had a trend change from downward sloping to a positive sloping here, right? That's exactly usually what wave 2 does. Wave 3 is the big move from the trend change. And this move can be the longest, and this move can be the highest. And I anticipate wave 3 is probably going to happen over the next couple of years or so. And what generally happens, wave 4 is you have a little bit of a corrective move. And then wave 5 is usually the exit liquidity that the whales are trying to use you as, because everybody's flip bullish over here by now. And wave 5 is usually the one that is getting retail to be even more bullish, while whales are exiting in front of your face using you as exit liquidity. The same thing is really happening over and over again with many different assets over the years. So for example, if you look at Bitcoin, and I don't really want to do the GAN here in Bitcoin, so so for example, if you look at Bitcoin, if you look at just the last cycle, not necessarily the cycle, but you just look at the last cycle, what happened, right? Exactly the same thing happened here during the last cycle of Bitcoin, where you are having a wave 1 that had changed. Basically, you have a little bit of negative sloping, right? But wave 1 prevented the 20-month moving average from slipping even further, right? You have wave 1 here, and then you have wave 2, which is the corrective move. Now, wave 2 did go down a lot further because of COVID, but this whole thing right here is arguably is wave 2, which is just a cool down of that. Now, with wave 2, you're going to have a little bit of a Bollinger Band contraction, telling you that, hey, the trend is changing. So let's consolidate sideways here a little bit longer. Now, wave 3 is the powerful move that went all the way up here, right? Wave 4 is the corrective move. It got everybody excited. Oh, buy the dip, whatever. And then wave 5 is when they used to as exit liquidity, right? And next thing you know, a very brutal kind of correction ensured, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing here, really, with SOFI. This is basically human psychology 101. Now, where did I find all these targets here? Let's just kind of get rid of that. Get rid of the Bollinger Band. I'm going to go back to the weekly chart here. And I'm going to show you a couple of things. First of all, I do think that if this is a bull trend developing for a longer term, generally things, if you do a Fibonacci retracement here, generally things would end up hitting whenever it breaks back above all-time high, which I expect SoFi to be able to do that because their fundamentals are actually getting better and better. If it breaks through over back to all-time high over the next coming years, then the next natural level is going to gravitate to is going to be the 1.618, which is $43, and the 2.618, which is $67. So for simplicity's sake, let's just remember 40 and 60, right? Now, if you do the Gann chart here again, and I'm going to go ahead and do that here real quick. You remember I'm going to do it on both the weekly here and the 2-week chart. From the bottom over here, which I'm going to do a 360 in terms of duration, and I'm going to change that into 1, right? So if you do this, you see some pretty decent market symmetry. You see where it got rejected, you see where it's finding support, right? And you see where price is kind of gravitating into. Well, the way I see it, and this might not see it as clearly and as I would show it, but I can totally see this potentially being wave 1 up here. I need to get rid of the magnet. I can totally see this being wave 1 right here, and this whole thing right here is wave 2, which is a very long wave 2, by the way. Wave 3 is going to be the longest, where it's going to hit. If it's impulsive, which I think it's going to be, it could break above all of these arcs up here. It could potentially get up to this arc, and that could be it. And that could be a little bit of a reduced cycle, right, over here. And then wave 4, it could come back down, maybe back test the bottom of the arc over here. Wave 5 might end up hitting somewhere up here in the 60, sometime within this decade, maybe over the next 3 to 5 years or so, right? I do think that 60 is probably going to end up getting hit by 2030. Is my speculation, right? Is it absolutely going to hit? I don't know, right? Is wave 3 going to end up hitting this confluent zone over here if we end up being very, very impulsive? It's possible. Now, you're going to think I'm crazy because everybody thinks the economy is going down. Everybody thinks that we're at recession risk. And that's exactly why I'm bullish right now. That's exactly why I'm bullish right now. So like, is wave 3 going to end up like hitting maybe this angle over here and it's getting rejected down here? And we end up going back to like 25 or something like that, which is a very important zone up here, by the way, before pushing up for another wave up. And then next thing you know, have some pretty brutal correction that can happen after that. It's all possible. Based on what I'm seeing right now on sentiment, nobody really cares about SoFi. Like, nobody really cares about SoFi. And look at like the whale accumulation, all that. Like, it's just ridiculous. I can totally see something like this happen, right? Now, another way to look at it, I can change the Gann here. Let's do instead of doing weekly, let's do a 2-week, right? If I do a 2-week, I can do the same Gann here. We can do like 360. Actually, let me turn on the magnet here again. We can do 360, and then we can do 1, right, as a ratio. And this gives you a little bit of a different market symmetry. I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's give you 1 right here, right? So this tells you that, hey, price got rejected here at the horizontal as well as throughout the entire arc over here, right? So if we're able to break about this arc here, which I think we will, then I think things can get pretty explosive. I think we end up going to hit the arc up here, and I think that there could be a potential for things to also hit up on these arcs up here, right? So the important thing is, if you do it this way, the horizontal zone, which I think is probably going to end up hitting this decade, is also up here around 60, right? So I can totally still see that, you have still wave 1, wave 2, and I can totally see wave 3 maybe hitting somewhere around like the 30s and 40s. And then you're going to have a little bit of a shorter wave 4 because you have a very long wave 2 already. And I can totally see by, for example, by 2030 or so, maybe even a little bit earlier, I can totally see that $60 get hit just based on the impulse that is going, just based on the fact that there's a lot of whales accumulating, just based on the fact that the sentiment is like absolutely horrible, and just based on the fact that we are kind of using, the angle as support. I can totally see us riding a 45-degree angle up over time and hit 60 and then break down further for a correction. Now, how am I so deterministic about this on SoFi? I'm not. All of this is speculation. I do not know the answer to that. If I knew the answer to that, I'm just going to keep buying SoFi, and I don't have to buy anything else. I do not know the answer to that, but I'll tell you what I do. I'll probably end up keep buying until it breaks out $8, and I might reduce my buy. And when it breaks above $10, I'm going to stop buying. That's what I'm going to do. And after that, I'm going to let it do whatever it wants to do. I don't care. I'm just going to keep holding and see where it takes me. But I am pretty bullish on SoFi looking at this. I think I was probably a little bit too prematurely bullish looking at the pattern. It ended up creating a very, very prolonged wave 2, and it's just unfortunate, right? So I would also go back to the whole Bollinger Band theory here, because the whole thing I was talking about with the Bollinger Band is happening with SoFi right now, right? This is wave 1. All wave 1 is doing is it basically flip a negative sloping 20-month moving average to positive sloping, right? And wave 2 is just a corrective move, consolidation sideways, Bollinger Band contraction, right? I show you all this with Bitcoin. What's wave 3 going to do? Wave 3 is probably going to be an impulsive move, and because the 20-month month is moving upwards, and it looks like we're going to try to find support over here. Wave 3 is going to be a very impulsive move because Bollinger Band contraction usually means a bigger move's coming, right? So it's probably going to end up pushing price up higher, and I can totally see that the monthly Bollinger Band expands, and as it expands, I can see price gravitate up towards maybe this arc up here. That's where I'm seeing, and maybe with a little bit of a correction down here, and then go up to maybe around the 60 zone, and then using a lot of people as extra liquidity when people finally flip really, really bullish years from now, in around maybe like, within this decade. Anyway, all this is speculation. But with this educated speculation, I do not expect you to believe in what I say. I don't necessarily hold myself to it to 100%, but this is kind of what I'm seeing. This is what I'm kind of speculating, and this is what I'm seeing based on human psychology. This is what I'm basically seeing on market sentiment, and this is also basically what I'm seeing here with SoFi's results from quarter to quarter, as well as what the institutions are thinking too, right? Anyway, thanks so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.